I think the fact that what you put inside your mouth, it doesn't just affect your physical body. It also affects your spiritual body and, of course, your mental body. And yesterday we went through the quotes of Imam Shafi'i, Hassan Basri, and Ibn Sirin, these three scholars who mentioned that if you eat too much food, it will make you sleep. I think everyone associates eating too much with sleeping too much. These are quite nicely correlated. I don't think there's too much dispute in that. So eating too much, and it kind of lowers your energy level, and mentally you kind of feel a bit drained, and then the spirit feels, it's harder to kind of pray then, to actually get in touch with Allah. So I think that's what we touched upon mainly yesterday. And the third slide, for those of you that are looking at the slide, which of the body parts does the praying actually affect? Not the praying, the eating. So instead of, because we looked at the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where the Prophet ﷺ, he says that we should eat food to try and keep yourself upright, to keep yourself going. So that kind of flips how some of us even look at food. So it means that now we're eating to kind of, support our body. And as soon as you start doing that, now you're going to have to ask yourself the question that what's the most important organ in my body, or organs in my body? And personally for me, it's usually the brain. I think the first thing that comes up is the brain. So you want to kind of support, you want your brain to work well. It's really quite important, I think, for your brain to be functioning quite optimally. The more optimally your brain works, the better you can actually use the rest of your body as well. So figuring out, it's a good investment to invest in foods which are good for your brain. I think the number one thing, I personally had a brain teacher for a few months in, I think, 2018 and a bit of 2019. So being a brain teacher, he taught me to memorize some of the foods which are really good for your brain. I think number one was avocado, which is the thing which he was always obsessing about. Avocados and turmeric. These are the things which are still in my diet from those 2 years ago, and I tried to bring them all in. But I think everyone on their own level can think about their own body and their own brain, and what it is that might help the brain function a bit better during this month. And I think yesterday we focused on the brain. For example, avocados, turmeric, walnuts was in there, broccoli. There's so many things which are good for your brain, but they're all good in different ways. So just trying to figure out something. And when you bring that consciousness that you actually eat it, and then you know that this is going to be good for my brain, then when you start needing to use your brain, maybe to learn a part of the Quran, maybe to read a book quickly, maybe to figure out something important, like you do some deep thinking maybe, or something like that, then you realize that it's actually a bit easier to use your brain, which is always good for that. I think the other body part which is really important is obviously the heart. And I was in there's a variety of things which are good for the heart, but I think it's important just to think about it as well. Which things are there which help the cardio system, which is always very, very useful. And when you do that, when you have that consciousness that I need to look after these organs, then also you can appreciate the effect on the body. And I think just before we move on to the next slide, the one thing I want you to just say is that, especially in Ramadan, I think the digestive system takes a bit of a toll. So if we're not eating for 15-16 hours, and then we do go overboard at iftar time, I know most of you, mashallah, don't. I think we've got quite a positive kind of community here. We've got quite an advanced set of people here who kind of tend to control themselves more than the rest of us. But we might have, like yesterday, someone actually messaged me, someone who came to the class, and they said that, alhamdulillah, I enjoyed the talk, and I managed to control myself at iftar time, but the rest of the family around me was still going all out. So it's kind of, the environment isn't that conducive all the time either. But if you do manage to control, the digestive system will notice that it'll actually feel good. So your stomach, the intestines, the pancreas, even like the throat area. Like if you're having like spicy food, like personally, because I have to lead Taraweeh in Ramadan, even in lockdown. So if I've had like anything not very good for your throat, or generally not very good for your digestive, you won't be able to recite the Quran properly. And for those of you that have done advanced Quran recitation courses, like I know some of you study with Sheikh Ismail and Wissam Sharif, I don't think Wissam Sharif's here today, but even those of you that's doing the Sheikh Ismail course, he's definitely told me to look out for the foods which I eat, because the clarity which you need to get the letters out is important, man. But anyway, those are just some basic things. And then I think the one verse which we always come to whenever we're studying Ramadan is this verse here. This is the first verse in that little passage in the Quran. We'll try and read this at the end, inshallah, today. I want to actually make sure I leave some time for the Quran. It's Ramadan, isn't it? So I think I want to actively actually schedule some time for the Quran today. So I think at 6:40 we're going to stop whatever we're doing and read some Quran, inshallah. But this is the verse of the Quran which comes up when Allah speaks about Ramadan. And when Allah says that the point of Ramadan is taqwa. And just to recap the couple of things which we've done about taqwa. One is taqwa just has those two aspects. One is the mindset and one is the control. And when we think of it from a mindset perspective, we realize that taqwa is something which we're always going to be learning new things about. Every day of Ramadan is going to give us a new insight. Every time when like for example right now we're not allowed to drink water and it's quite sunny and you might feel like going for a jog or going for a walk outside and drinking some water. But the only reason we don't is because of our taqwa, because of our awareness of Allah. Every time that we have that dialogue in our mind, we might not even have dialogue in our mind now, being so long into Ramadan. But now we've become quite good at taqwa, quite good at controlling ourselves. So that in itself is really powerful. But what we learn is that this awareness is practiced, and then now it becomes automatic practice. So now automatically we don't even think about water anymore. We don't even think about eating anymore. It becomes normal. And that is the mindset which we're trying to build for the rest of our life as well. And then that discipline comes into our life. And I think like Ramadhan mentioned yesterday, I don't think he's here yet. We'll probably tune in a bit. But like Ramadhan mentioned yesterday about the exercise that we've done when we try and appreciate Allah in different ways. So like for those of us doing iftar with dates and fruit and stuff, we're appreciating Allah's way of creating food which is actually designed for human consumption. The strange thing is when human beings come together, human beings are very clever. We're probably the most intelligent species on the planet, actually, in most cases. But the problem is when we come and start making food, I think the food industry is designed to make money out of the food that they make, not to make healthy human beings. So when that happens, we kind of, it's not always the cleverest thing which happens. So when we bring awareness just to the fact that Allah's created a certain food, and what happens when we eat that, and how that affects the body, it just gets us in touch with our Creator, even to that extent. What Ramadhan said was even when we look at a tree, and we realize that a tree is just a tree, and it's got branches going in different directions. And sometimes, if you're like all technical, sometimes it looks like the branch is going in the wrong direction. But we don't worry about that. When we look at a tree, we just take the beauty in, and we're just like, wow, that's amazing how Allah's created the tree. We don't want to always make everything to be so perfect. And I think when we extend that to ourselves, as human beings, that we don't always want to be so perfect ourselves, which is very powerful. And that's why the last point on the slide there is that as soon as we have a mindset of imperfection, that's when it's a bit easier to grow a little bit. Does that make sense? Because now when we think of taqwa, even if we think of it from like taqwa is this really scary thing which is an awareness of Allah and I need to always have like lots and lots of it, then it becomes difficult to even develop it as a mindset. Does this make some kind of sense? But in reality, when you realize that taqwa is something which will always increase, will always develop, and will always get better in, then that's what really helps increase the taqwa. So if you're looking at the screen now, this idea of having a growth mindset will actually come as part of the taqwa mindset. Yeah, does that make sense? As part of an awareness of Allah, you become aware of the fact that we're going to be continuously growing. And in reality, we spoke about this at the beginning, man. But just that idea, I don't want to go too deep into this, but just like when you do look at the tree, for example, we realize that the way Allah works, the way that Allah operates, the way that Allah creates human beings, and the way that Allah has created us as well, is actually kind of to some extent, it's a little bit beyond our comprehension. Does that make sense? It's not always going to be so simple that we're going to understand it 100%. Some of it is going to be beyond what we understand. And it's our job to try and work it out and get more in touch with it. And once you get rid of the knowing and we start coming into this learning mindset or the growth mindset, it actually gives us that chance to develop. Does that make sense to everyone? I hope they're making some kind of sense, man. You can turn your mics off for like 1 second and say yes, man. Just so I know you're all actually listening. Oh, alhamdulillah. Yes, Saleh. Saleh, you're awake, mashallah. Wa alaikum salam. How are you, man? MashaAllah. No worries, man. No worries. It's good to have you. Sister Suleika's here as well. Assalamu alaikum, sister. Faizan's here. Mudassir Khan's here as well. Assalamu alaikum, Mudassir Khan. Dr. Mudassir. Faizan. Scientist Faizan. Rocket scientist Faizan. I should give you all titles, innit? Oh, Alex, no, Imran. Sorry, Imran, you're at the front. I'm just... Let me come to... Where's Imran? Oh, assalamu alaikum, man. How are you, man? No worries, man. No, you don't need to apologize, people, man. Assalamu alaikum, Alpha. Nice t-shirt, man. Beautiful. Good to have you, man. I'm just going to chase these people, man, who's not responding. Faizan, are you there? Mudathir, are you there? How are you, man? Are you okay? So inspiring. MashaAllah. Rayyan, are you there? Oh, you two are next to each other. Are you going to start fighting again? Okay, I thought Rayyan's going to start. Mudathir, assalamu alaikum. Oh, mashallah, man. Nice to see you, man. Inshallah, Qasmi, man. Good to have you here. Inshallah, man. That was interesting. So everyone's okay with just that. It's very basic stuff. We just... Oh, Wissam. Assalamu alaikum. Sorry, man. Left you out, man. Okay. Inshallah, man. So what we done yesterday, we're just bringing... I think the big title of like these last few days has been consumption. I think Ramadan is a lot about consuming food and drink and stuff. And Ramadan itself, just by the fact that Ramadan exists, we automatically become aware of what we eat. I don't really need to give a big talk about eating or drinking. And there's the other thing as well, which is like kind of the time, like even sleeping with your wife, for those of us that are married. And even those of us that are not married, like even, I think we live with everyone having a smartphone. Maybe if this was 10 years ago when pornography wasn't as rife as it is today and as in your face as it is today, this probably wouldn't even have been a topic. But even the younger people who aren't married, masturbation becomes a very big issue outside of Ramadan for a lot of people. So when Ramadan starts, I think even that consciousness starts there. So obviously, because we'd probably be aware that would break your fast. So even if that's something which we were doing outside of Ramadan, you're able to actually bring that consciousness there during Ramadan and actually control that as well, and see how that affects your spirit and your soul in a different way as well. Because it's important, because there's 3 things we stay away from in Ramadan, isn't it? It's food, water, and sex. It's all 3 of these things. And even if you're not married, or if you don't have your wife with you, I think in Ramadan, even people who do tend to fall prey to masturbating, we're able to control ourselves a lot better in Ramadan, which is very, very important. It's important to be aware of that, because obviously it has a devastating effect on our soul. I think just having a smartphone and using, like I was looking, like I've actually got Snapchat. I know some of you are probably thinking, what's Snapchat? It's a bit like WhatsApp. It's a bit like Instagram and WhatsApp, and it's where you kind of post things very quickly. But the advert, and it's designed for like kids, for your children maybe. Some of you might have kids who use Snapchat, and the filth that's on there, man. The adverts that come up is pretty disgusting, man. I was really surprised actually. I didn't realize it was so in your face, because like there's other things, like there's other information which we're exposed to, but the stuff which our kids and the teenagers are exposed to is actually quite worrying, man. Like how that affects people. But anyway, man. So I think naturally Ramadan brings more awareness to these 3 aspects of our life: the food, the drink, and our kind of sexual health to some extent. But on top of that, what we went into yesterday were just generally, beyond these 3 things, the general information which we have coming into our brains, which is the general flow of information. So this can come from news, it can come from the notifications which you have on your phone, and very often it might come from the conversations which you have with the people around you, the people you choose to spend time with, and the courses that you choose to do. So naturally, I think Hamdan's arrived, mashallah. Naturally, we don't pay much attention to what we allow to come in. We might just, see an advert. We might turn the TV on, watch something, see the adverts which are before it and after it. For those of you that watch YouTube, it depends on kind of what you're interested in. I think the beauty of Google, I'm a big fan of Google. I know some of you don't like Google, but for those of you that do use Google, Google's linked with YouTube now. So if you're searching something on Google, like yesterday, I was searching something. Wa alaikum salam, Hamdan, man. How are you? MashaAllah, good to have you, man. So I was searching something on Google. I needed to kind of sort my CV out, if I'm honest. So I was searching like CV tips and stuff. And then I went on YouTube to watch some videos. And then, obviously, as you guys have probably already had the same experience, now you get adverts on YouTube for the same thing. So now I get adverts on YouTube for how to build a CV, which is interesting. So the stuff that you're searching is often nowadays, because alhamdulillah, like personally, I think this is to some extent a good thing. So now if you're searching good stuff on Google, you're going to get good recommendations even on YouTube in terms of the adverts that you get. Or even the adverts that Google's going to try and push in your face, they're going to be similar to what you search. This doesn't happen when you watch TV as much. When you're watching TV, it's unfiltered. You're going to get everything. But now you're going to start getting adverts towards these things. And if there's a sin which you're doing, if you're doing something bad, if you're trying to research something which is not good for you, Google's going to pick up on that as well and realize this person's interested in this thing, and then it's going to try and push that it's going to basically become a shaitan for you, where it's going to push those things into you even more and more. And even YouTube with its algorithms and the recommended video, for example, what you're used to watching. If you're watching talks, like I tend to watch lectures generally. I don't really do much else with YouTube. So depending on which kind of speakers I'm interested in, it will push that kind of speaker. But I'm presuming if somebody's watching music, is gonna filter what kind of music that you like. If you're watching something even worse than music, it's probably going to filter that for you and try and push that in your direction. And this will probably just pass that all off as a notification or just the automatic adverts which are going on. But that's all part of the information which comes into our life, man. I think it's important to be aware of what information is coming into our lives. If you're using YouTube as an app, it's going to be pushing a lot of information towards you. The adverts before every video, they're going to be tailored to you, unless you're one of those one of those people who are scared of everything being tailored to you and you refuse to let Google collect any of your data. I hope none of you are like that, man. You should be nice to Google. Google is a very nice company, man. But anyway, I'm not gonna go too deep onto my love for Google here. But anyway, so just being aware that these are all things which push information into your life. And like I mentioned about my wife yesterday, like you'll even get notifications for the news, notifications for if you download an app, you probably give that app permission to give you a notification. I know for those of you that have worked with me recently, I've told you all to download the gratitude app. Yeah, so those of you, I think I was pushing this more before the coronavirus. But for those of you that have downloaded the gratitude app, that will give you a little reminder throughout the day. And that will change your brain, man. If that gratitude app comes up and says, write down something which you are grateful for, and you read that, that's going to have an effect on you as well. So I definitely recommend being aware of how just even your smartphone works to in terms of the information which you're getting in. And obviously, because smartphones aren't necessarily the amount of good things that we can do with our smartphones, there's also some bad stuff which happens on our smartphones. I think I've mentioned some of those today anyway. But also it's important to be in control of your smartphone. Like if your smartphone's controlling you, then maybe you need to have a fast, do some siyam from your smartphone. Like turn it off for a few hours. And you might find that hard, if I'm honest. But anyway, man, I would definitely recommend smartphones for especially with the younger guys, man. Like like personally, I've been addicted to my phone, and when I was addicted to my phone, I definitely didn't go around admitting to anyone that I was addicted to my phone. That would be the last thing I'd do. So, so even when you think that you are in control, you might not be. It's important to maybe do some self-assessment. How many times do you pick it up? Do you pick it up unnecessarily? And obviously, I actually had a teacher, alhamdulillah, who helped me like not spend any time with my phone. But you know, if you don't have that what's it called, luxury, you might have to try and practice yourself. Like start with 5 minutes, extend it to half an hour, and then in Ramadan especially, with itikaf coming up, in the last 10 days, I'm definitely going to give everyone a challenge of being phone free for the whole day, apart from for something like this or an actual course which you're doing. And this is like the thing is, it's a bit difficult to put this into words for everyone because I know all of you will be at a different stage. But what I'd say that you should be aiming for is 100% control on the information which comes into your life. I know that's not even probably technically even possible, but trying to work towards that. That instead of just allowing all the news in, all the information in, all the negative information in, actually trying to think that that today I've got 24 hours in today's day. What information do I want to learn? What do I want to learn about? How do I want to actually improve myself? And hopefully most of you probably have some kind of courses which you're doing, some kind of educational courses, development courses, awareness courses, whatever you might be doing. But you should be aware of what good information are you allowing in, and how are you trying to improve that information flow in your life. Does that make sense to everyone? Hope that was useful, man. But I think generally with the smartphones and even with because I think the OKR of Google. So who knows what Google's big MTP was? I speak about this a lot, man. For those of you that have spent one-to-one time with me, I'm sure I've mentioned this several times. Anyway, so Google's OKR was to organize the world's information. So they decided that all the information in the world, we're going to make such a system that if anybody wants to know anything, then they can use Google to figure out that information. And I think, mashallah, we have to give them a big round of applause for for kind of achieving their OKR. Yeah, man. Sorry, I forgot why I was saying this. Anyway, man, I've completely forgotten why I'm telling you this. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. So the aim was to organize all of the world's information, but the aim wasn't to differentiate between good and bad. So if you type on Google, you can find out. You can use Google to do some terrible things if you want. You could probably make it like you can buy a drone. You can learn how to make a bomb. Like you could probably get a drone and attach some explosives to it and fly it anywhere in the world. Probably for about. I was speaking to Faizan about this. Like the speed at which technology has advanced has been a lot quicker than the speed at which our consciousness and our spirit has advanced. So now, for about £500, you could probably blow up like something the other side of the city which you're living in. I'm not saying I've Googled this, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty... Like, if you think of a drone, which can hold anything, and then you can just remote control it to wherever you want it to go. Yeah? And if our brains and our consciousness and our spirit and our awareness doesn't evolve at the same rate, we're going to obviously have problems in the world. We're going to have people with robots who can go around and kill whoever you want. Like, we do have to focus on actually what type of information we allow in as well. So now, Google, mashallah, have made all of the information in the world available. Now it's our choice to decide which of that information we go after. And that's a conscious decision. Sometimes, the problem I've noticed with people that I work with, sometimes we think that that's not a conscious decision. Yeah, we think that, the TV tells us, the media controls us, it's all Donald Trump's fault. Well, it's actually your fault, isn't it? Google's there, and alhamdulillah, Google have organized everything for you. It's up to you what you put in that search bar. But anyway, man. Yes, Alpha, you're going to say something? Anyway, is everyone following, yeah? Oh. So no, man, it's 40, man. I want to move on to some Quran recitation. It's the month of the Quran, and we always get to the end of the lesson and I'm like, yeah, we've missed out on the Quran. So we'll come on to that Quran. Let me just read through the chat. Bring it on Microsoft. Microsoft. I actually, I like Microsoft, man, because I grew up with Microsoft. So I grew up with Word and PowerPoint. That's why I still use PowerPoint instead of Google, instead of the Google equivalents. Even though I love Google. Um, but I actually registered, I actually paid Microsoft for their, they have that subscription in it. You pay them £80 a year or something, and they give you lots of stuff. So I fund Microsoft to some extent. I believe in, what's that guy? What's that guy's name? Bill Gates. Yeah, Bill Gates has some good ideas as well, man. If you study him carefully. Anyway, man, too many tangents, isn't it? Salam. I am sorry I'm late. No worries, Abdul Hafiz, man. No worries. Lovely to have you here, man. Lovely to have you here. He's not even listening. Anyway, so the final thing we brought awareness to yesterday was actually awareness of oxygen consumption, which was very interesting as well. Which is just the like how we breathe, basically. And usually we don't think about this at all. And by bringing a little bit of awareness to it is usually enough just to make you realize that there's a bit more to this than maybe we have thought of. So there's different exercises for this. I know people who I work with one-to-one, again, we do different exercises. And I don't like to systemize it and say that this is the way to breathe, because there isn't like one special way to breathe. But there's different things. Like I know some of you, we use counting. So we breathe in for a certain, like breathe in for 3 and breathe out for 3. And then there's kind of box breathing, which is quite powerful, where when you do box breathing, you realize that you can breathe in, hold it, breathe out, and hold it. And you can try and do that for equal amounts. So you breathe in for 3, then you hold it for 3, breathe out for 3, hold it for 3, and try and do that. And that's a bit more advanced maybe. And then there's just the simple thing of just following your breath in, and then following your breath out. And the more techniques you kind of have in your little toolbox of breathing, the more you can kind of bring awareness there. The main thing obviously is, number one thing which I want everyone to kind of realize is what do I want you to realize is the difficulty, like how hard we find it to actually concentrate on our breath. Just for 3 breaths. So if I say follow your next 3 breaths, I could say that and then I could expect you all to do it, but most of you would fail, unfortunately. As sad as that is, most of you would struggle to follow your breath for 3 breaths because our concentration is actually not that good. So that's why using a few techniques help. So today, I haven't really thought of which one to use today. But I think we'll start just with noticing where your breath is. So this is actually even more powerful because it brings curiosity to the whole affair. Because for those of you that have kind of done this before, you might be like, I know how to breathe. But just asking the question that where is my breath at the moment, I think that's a nice way. That's a nice way to start. And that also gets you in touch with your body a little bit, because if before you are kind of in your mind a little bit, it helps you go from being all in your head and being a bit more kind of in your actual body, being here, being where you are, rather than in your thoughts. And then now, once you've kind of spent a bit of time doing that, following the next breath in, and I think the very easiest way to do that is is noticing the breath come in through your nostrils, through your nose, and not just through your nose, following the breath and seeing how far into your body you can actually follow your breath. And just from a purely biological perspective, your lungs were designed for breathing. So your breath should go all the way down to the bottom of your lungs if you're breathing properly, whatever that means. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designed the lungs for breathing and the nose for breathing, just on a tangent as well. Like, as in the mouth is not, the mouth has other functions like speaking and tasting and other things. The nose is more kind of there for breathing. And then now I think we've brought quite a bit of attention to the way that we're breathing in. So what I want you guys to do is, as well as noticing when you're breathing in, is also noticing how the breath comes out as well. And hopefully what you will have noticed is that you don't need to force it as much as you may have thought. So if previously when I said breathe in through your nose, you suddenly have to chain. If previously when breathing, you had to bring awareness to your breathing and kind of actually change your physiology. What I want you to do now is actually realize that you're kind of, instead of changing your physiology, you're kind of going into your actual default physiology. Does that make any sense? Or did I just go over everyone's head? Did that make sense? Gee, those of you on camera, nod along, man. It's help. I like it. Okay, good. That's good, man. Okay, so I think that's important to realize that, man. That we're just becoming aware of our default physiology, as opposed to trying to kind of change anything. And for those of you that have practiced that with the Quran, you realize that even when we're reciting the Quran, the word of Allah doesn't actually require us to be so forceful with it. It comes very, very naturally, as opposed to forcefully. Anyway, man. Gee. Is everyone ready yet? Gee. So we'll go with, you can follow on the screen. If you want to turn your cameras off, you can turn your cameras off as well, man, just to be as comfortable as you want. And we'll start with this, man. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Good. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Good, mashallah. Very good. I think you read the wrong thing, bro. Whoever that was. That was Mudathir, wasn't it? Anyway, sorry. Okay, we'll move on to the dua for the Quran. Bismillah Rahman Rahim. I think the hardest part there is just the last word, because just remember the noon. I forgot my mouse. The noon is flat, and then it will round into the ra. The thing is with the ra, we're going to hold it a little bit because we've got the shadda. So nirra. Good, remembering to breathe. Nirrahim. Nirrahim. Good. And what I want everyone just to take a couple of seconds to do is, before we read both of those two words, we're going to read Rahman and Rahim. But before we do that, just follow your breath in and follow your breath out, as opposed to kind of forcing your breath in and forcing your breath out. And also, it's very important not to worry about how your breath is going to do this. I think you don't actually need to breathe in specifically. That's just to help you kind of understand how it works. The reality is it would work even without your breath, if that makes any sense. You don't actually rely on your breath. You're not dependent on your breath. It's actually beyond that. It doesn't require that. Anyway, so what I'm saying is just follow your breath in. But an important thing in terms of your psychology is, don't believe that you reading this is dependent on how nicely you breathe in. You're just breathing in for the sake of breathing in. Rahmanir Rahim. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Gee, good. You can practice it once more, man, while I forgot to get the second part up. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Good. Anyway, so I want you to do these two verses. So, because we done the tafsir of these a couple of days ago. So we done this one, which is 183 Surah Baqarah, and we done this, which I think is 186 Surah Baqarah, and we went through the translation and all the details. So I just want you to read them because I thought they're not too long, but both of these verses give a complete message. So I know most of you will probably be aware that if you're praying something in Quran in your salah, if it's only one verse, it has to be a complete verse, which gives a complete message. Some of you might have heard that it has to be a minimum of 3 verses, but it can be one long verse, yeah, if you're praying in your salah. But both of these verses are basically long enough for you to read them as just read that one verse and then go Allahu Akbar into ruku. Does that make sense? So for example, if you're praying Maghrib, you could pray Allahu Akbar, Surah Fatiha, recite this verse and then go into ruku. Then you can go into your second unit of prayer, so recite Surah Fatiha, recite this verse and then go into ruku. You might take a couple of days to learn them properly by heart, but I think because it's Ramadan, it'd be nice to learn these, and I just wanted to go through the Arabic today, so we can read them properly. I think we actually already been through the Arabic of this one, the one on the screen now, and I just wanted to add this one in because this is obviously like the whole introduction to Ramadan. Is everyone ready? Yeah. يا أيها الذين آمنوا. Good. That might have been a bit too much for some of you. What I want to do is start off with that very first syllable, which is the ya. You're allowed to stretch that a bit. In fact, you're meant to stretch it a little bit. So while you're stretching it, what you need to do is actually just allow your voice to kind of play with that idea. There are some rules here on how you're meant to stretch it, but I just want you to listen and try and copy. So it's going to be listening and learning like that. So just try and concentrate carefully on what it sounds like and try and copy it as exactly as you can, but also as naturally as you can as well. Yeah. Good. يا أيها الذين آمنوا. Good. That's pretty straightforward, yeah. I think those of you that are reading Quran a lot in Ramadan, you probably read that enough times this Ramadan. كتب عليكم الصيام. Good. I think the hardest part there is going to be the sod. So let me just get that out of the way. Alaykumus. So the meme is going to stay round. Alpha's back. The meme is going to be round and the sod is going to be round. I just want to bring everyone's attention to the meme and the fact the meme will join straight onto the sod. The sod has a shadda, this W sign, which means that you're allowed to hold just the sound of the sod, and then you can say the kasra. So does that make sense? So, Mossi, yeah, Mossi. That's what we're aiming for in terms of everyone just practice just that bit on his own. So, Mossi. Good. Mosiyamu. Good. And you can just all chill out a bit. Remember to breathe. Alaykumus siyamu. Kutiba alaykumus siyamu. Good. Kutiba alaykumus siyamu. Good. And then كما كتب على الذين. Good. I know definitely for those of you from the Indian subcontinent, you'll struggle on this letter a bit, the dhal. Yeah. But the dhal is, tongue comes forward, the, and then alalladina, so that the lam will join onto the second lam, shadda's there, so you're going to hold the lam sound. Holding the lam sound isn't even that easy, if I'm honest, because it's kind of a sound, which is takes a bit of, it means that your tongue has to be relaxed, and the problem is most people when they read the Quran, they're not relaxed, they're quite tensed up. So just keep that in mind. It's not like you don't have to be scared or anything, but just keep that in mind that often people are more tense with their tongue. So just keeping that in mind, remembering to breathe. على الذين. Good. And just with the val, dhina. Okay, make sure the tongue is hitting the bottom of the teeth. Dhina, and it's relaxed. على الذين كما كتب على الذين. Good. And move on to the next bit. So we've split it into 3 parts so far. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين. Then من قبلكم. من قبلكم. Good. And the ba has a bit of an echo sound because it's got sukun. So this ba you can just it's come from the lips. Most people's, we haven't actually had many lip letters yet, so your lips might still be tense. So just bring that awareness. This is very normal, by the way, for your lips to still be tense, even though you've been reading Quran for like the past 10 minutes and breathing and all this. Your lips might still be tenser than they need to be. So you might. So when it comes onto the ba, qab, qab. A lot of people will be qab, and there'll be that tension there, which will mean that you won't be able to flow on. So just remember to breathe. Min qablikum. The qaf is obviously a round letter, so we're going qab and then coming flat. So qablikum. Min qablikum. Good. Don't worry too much about the noon. That's kind of an extra rule. But however that happens. Good. Then the last bit. لعلكم تتقون. لعلكم تتقون. Good. Now I just want to do those last 4 words together here, starting from min. من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. Good. The ta's hard now. I just found it hard as well. Some of you advanced students will have noticed actually. Anyway, we'll practice that just isolated. So just keep your focus there. لعلكم تتقون. Because that was better. So the ta also has a shadda, so you have to hold the sound of the ta. Ta's, we might say an alif ba ta. It was so easy, but when it comes to holding it, sometimes just the tongue can tense up again. It's important just to be aware of that. You remember to follow your breath. من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون.